Pompano Beach, a VCMG live radio station. The new Oldies 95.3 and 96.9.
Along the sun-drenched beaches of Boca Raton lies AMP2 Media. We strive to bring rising stars and their fantastic work into the spotlight. From music to art, we have the tools and the talent you need to help you reach the next level. AMP2 Media is proud to announce our new scoring platform for reality shows, movies, and videos. We have the ability to highlight music according to what the eye sees on the screen. Our excellent mastery of music allows us into the deepest part of your film. Our different sounds allow your film work to come to life. For more information, call our studios at 866-224-5422 or visit our website at amp2.tv. Let AMP Media Productions bring your media to life.
The content, information, and opinions expressed during the related show are those of the show personalities and guests alone, and not those of Vic Canellis Media Group, its parent, affiliates, or stations. VCMG Live is not responsible for any content, information, or opinions expressed. User bears full responsibility for their reliance on such content, information, or opinions.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marchia Teele. Marchia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marchia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marchia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marchia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm your host, Marchia Teele. I'm glad that you're here today. We have another wonderful program for you. There are a lot of people that are caregivers, and there are a lot of people that have dementia, some form of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, vascular dementia, frontal temporal lobe dementia. There's a lot of issues with caring for someone with a memory loss. And so that's why this show was created just for you, the family unpaid caregiver, to learn more about what you need to know going through your caregiving journey. It's very difficult because most caregivers don't plan on being a caregiver, and most of the time it's just thrown in your lap, and you have to learn as you go, which is very difficult because you don't go to school for it and you don't expect it. So this show every week interviews experts in their field, giving you information, tips, and even definitions, but a lot of people don't even know things that they should know. And so this is a great way to get educated. It is an educational platform, and we have different disciplines that we cover, including elder law attorneys, social work, maybe finances with a financial planner, maybe a social site manager, maybe even a geriatric physician, or maybe it might even be doctors that are in the field, researchers and scientists. who are looking for a cure for this terrible disease we call Alzheimer's. And until that happens, until we find a cure, we're going to help you to understand it, deal with the challenges, the issues that come along with caregiving. So all things caregiving and all things dementia on the Caregiver Solutions Info Show. Today we're going to be talking to an expert about the ins and outs of assisted living when it comes to memory care. Now, I just spoke to someone earlier today, a gentleman whose mother has Alzheimer's, and she was currently living in an assisted living, but she had a separate unit in a memory care. So he really didn't understand whether she was in nursing home memory care, assisted living memory care, or something they just call memory care in general. I know it can be confusing, so we're going to go back to basics today, and we're going to talk about what it means to be in assisted living with memory care or without, the differences, and help people to understand when it's time to go into an assisted living, why someone would actually want their parent to go in or their spouse, and what could be the benefits of that. It's very difficult to thinking about the future, but we always say on this show, better to be prepared and not need it than to need it and not be prepared. So today my special guest is joining me from Fort Myers, Florida. She's joining us via telephone, and her name is Teele Cunningham. Teele Cunningham is a senior memory care advisor with the Arden Courts Memory Care Community in Fort Myers, Florida, which is part of the ProMedica Senior Care Organization. Teele is also what we call a CDP, which is a Certified Dementia Practitioner. And needless to say, she's had lots and lots of experience and education on this topic that we're going to be discussing today. So I'd like to welcome Teele Cunningham to the show. Teele, are you on the phone?
Yes, Marcia. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's truly an honor to do so.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here. I know you have a lot of great information to share. You've been doing this how many years now?
Oh, gosh, I hate to say it, Marcia, but 20 years.
Okay, well, I know that you are an expert at what you do. You've helped so many families, thousands of families in those 20 years, and you continue to help them and guide them and advise them. So thank you for being on the program today. We're going to be talking specifically today about assisted living because just last week we finished National Assisted Living Week. So my first question to you, Teele, is why is there a National Assisted Living Week, a total week dedicated to that?
Well, Marcia, it actually started back in 1995. It's so wonderful that the National Assisted Living Council wanted to recognize not just our residents who are in assisted living, and memory care is a part of the assisted living umbrella, but as well as the caregivers, the families, the staff, everyone who's involved in the assisted living community. And by recognizing each and every one of these individuals, it gave a chance to celebrate all the wonderful things that we are able to do with our residents, for our associates, and to continue to educate people about memory care and assisted living and what the differences are.
Well, that's great because this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, about what the differences are in different places where people can go to live with memory loss. And you just had a wonderful experience with your National Assisted Living Week, I know, over there in Fort Myers, as did all of the ProMedica properties in Florida. There are about 10 Arden Court memory care communities, again, part of the ProMedica family, and they all celebrated National Assisted Living Week in their own way. So because it's not only for the residents, but for the families and for the professionals, Can you give us an idea of some of the things that you participated in or provided for those individuals to celebrate this wonderful week?
Oh, absolutely, Marcia. We had a fantastic week. As a matter of fact, we're continuing it. The theme, and every year there's a different theme. So it was Joyful Moments, Capture the Moment. And one of the things that we did with our residents is we had them make picture frames. And they were very creative. They were beautiful picture frames that they made. And we took pictures of them so that they could send pictures to their family, have it for gifts for them. But we also wanted to capture the joyful moments that they were having in the community. One of the things that we expanded upon was we take this wonderful, wonderful theme that they have of joyful moments, and we had the opportunity to talk to our residents and to talk to our associates about what brings them joy or what was a joyful moment in their life. And a lot of the residents had mentioned to us that, you know, when they were a kid and they were opening Christmas presents, and then that led to another conversation, another great memory of what was your favorite Christmas present or what was your favorite time during the holiday. What were some of the things that you loved to do? And with our residents, you know, with the different forms of dementia, with Alzheimer's, allowing them to live in the moments that they're in, no one does it better than Arden Courts. So we decided we're going to continue this. We asked the residents, what are some things that would bring you joy? And so one of the things that we're doing is we are starting to collect toys for the Dr. Piper Social Services organization in Fort Myers for them to have for children at Christmas time, as well as toys for Golisano's Children's Hospital. And the residents are very excited about this. We're asking them what type of toys to get, you know, having them look through magazines, having them find out what was their favorite toy, what is a toy that they love to play with that is still a classic of today. We also want to talk about their trips that they went on. And in August, because there are really no holidays in August, we took our community, and for the entire month, we made it cruise month. And every week we went to a different destination. And that was another joyful moment for many of our residents, was talking about their trips, their cruises. And for many of them, they thought, well, a couple of them said, this is the best cruise I've ever been on. So it was, you know, when we were in Mexico, we had them making salsa, and we made non-alcoholic margaritas, and we had, you know, travel logs. We went all over, and in Hawaii, and we went to Jamaica, and we also even went to Asia, which was wonderful because one of our residents is an author, and she actually wrote travel logs about Asia. So she had the opportunity to have a joyful moment and to do travel logs and to show her books to the residents. So capturing those moments means so much, and especially with our residents that have this horrible disease. You know, we need to join their journey, and we allowed them to expand on their journeys, and that's what we continue to do. So we're going to continue the theme of joyful moments, capture the moments through the end of the year.
Wow, I love that. You guys were so busy, so much fun, it sounds like.
Oh, yes. And then with our associates, you know, we, of course, you know, Marcia, you know this better than anyone. Everybody loves the food that comes into, you know, for National Assisted Living Week. So the associates were treated to all different types of wonderful food. We gave them a very special luncheon, making sure there was special food that was delivered to all three shifts. And then we played Family Feud, our version, with them, where we were asking questions, dividing up during an all-staff meeting into teams, asking questions about each other and about different residents, and it was amazing. I am just truly blessed to be with the team that I'm with. It was a fantastic week. I just wish it would be a month.
And how did you involve the professionals, the healthcare professionals that you work with in order to educate them more about assisted living?
So with the group of professionals that we work with, and Lee County, as we know, is a very large county. There are Lee Health is our primary hospitals in the area. There's a lot of physician groups. But during this week, we had the opportunity to educate them about our community, that memory care is part of assisted living, and that we are a dedicated, freestanding memory care community, and what the differences are with a standard assisted living, with the different licensures, also explaining the different services. It's shocking, but many people do not realize that with the higher licensure, you are supposed to have a nurse in the community around the clock 24/7. They just assumed that, there was a nurse there during the day, but there was caregivers there at night. So the opportunity to educate not only the physicians, but other organizations in the area, it truly, it opened their eyes, and it helped them to understand the difference between what a standard assisted living is, what a assisted living that has a unit in their community that's dedicated to memory care, and what a freestanding memory care community is.
Well, Chalet,
and many of them also relate it to skilled nursing, which that's a whole nother group.
Exactly. And that's the perfect segue that we're going to be talking about in the next segment of the show. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Chalet Cunningham, certified dementia a certified dementia practitioner and senior memory care advisor, is going to be sharing with us the differences between all of those things. So you don't want to miss that. We'll be right back.
Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back to the show. My special guest today is Chalet Cunningham. She's joining me via telephone from her Fort Myers office. She's with pro-medical organizations, specifically the Arden Courts Memory Care Community over in Fort Myers, Florida. We've just talked about all the wonderful things that they did to celebrate National Assisted Living Week, which was last week. And now, Chalet, let's get into some specifics, because as you mentioned, healthcare professionals, as well as family members and others, sometimes don't understand the difference between a regular assisted living, a memory care assisted living, a nursing home, and not only not knowing the differences, but not knowing maybe where somebody belongs in their stages of the dementia of what they're currently experiencing. So I'm going to let you take it away and go ahead and explain those things for us, Chalet.
Okay, I would love to, Marcia. And actually had a wonderful call today that kind of touches on this. I was talking to a family that the daughter feels that her mother could live in assisted living. But as we continued to have the conversation, I realized that she truly didn't understand the differences. She also thought her mother could live in independent living because her mother could still do some of her ADLs, which is activities of daily living. And when we dug a little bit deeper, we realized that Mom really wasn't doing those activities of daily living on her own. that there was still prompting and cueing by the daughter to do these things. But she thought because her mother knew her name, her daughter's name, and her mother knew her birthday, but did not know the date today, that her mother knew what she felt was still quite a bit of, short-term memory, that she could live in assisted living. And then as things got worse, her words, then she could go into memory care. And I asked her, what is holding you back from wanting Mom to go into memory care? And she said, well, because it's a nursing home. And I then explained to her the difference. Their independent living is for those who can independently still care for themselves, but they want to look for more socialization, more activity. At some point, as people get older and they need more care, maybe they need their medications managed, or maybe they need assistance when they're showering because they're afraid of falling. They need to have all their meals prepared for them. But they don't really have a cognitive impairment or a memory concern, then that would be assisted living. And most assisted livings have a standard license. And what that means is that should this person require, wound care or bandages changed or injections or a whole list of a variety of different items, that organization would not be able to provide those services. They would have to bring in outside services with a standard license. If they had an LNS license or limited nursing services, and they chose to do these services, some people have the license but they don't do the services, then they would be able to do everything from wound care, cast care, colostomy care, if there was braces, injections, diabetic care, even eardrops, eye drops, that has to fall under LNS. But the key is LNS services can only happen from a nurse. If someone has a diagnosis of MCI, mild cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's, or one of the 128 different types of dementia, families really need to be looking at memory care. Many times a family is looking through the eyes at how their loved one was, how the spouse was, or how their parents were, and they're not really looking at how quickly this disease can change. It can be, there can be a decline within a matter of days or weeks. And to have someone go into assisted living but then become ostracized because they really can't participate in a more independent setting in a standard assisted living, that's really not fair to them, because socialization in memory care is so, so important. Skilled nursing is your nursing homes, and almost every nursing home has a rehab center. So if someone needs to go for rehab, I know that a lot of families go, but no, that's a nursing home. Well, almost every skilled nursing home has a rehab center, which is their short-term stay, where they're going to get physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, respiratory, etc. And it's much more clinical setting than your assisted living, whether it be standard or with an LNS license or your memory care. So when people look at this, automatically in their mind they're thinking a nursing home. And I say to them, what do you picture a community for your loved one to move into? And if it's the adult children, many times they're looking for the chandeliers and the marble floors and these beautiful buildings, which are really not the right fit for their loved one who has dementia and who needs the hands-on care. They need more of a home-like setting. So we often have to redirect them into what is going to be the best fit for your loved one, and for them to realize where are they truly at within the 7 stages of the disease. Marcia, I know you know that most people don't come to us So their loved one has already gone into the 5th stage of the disease. And then they're looking for miracles. And there is no cure yet for this disease. This is a terminal brain disease. And we have to look at it where if families would look at this the same way that they look at cancer, and I use this all the time. I did it today with this daughter. If you heard that your loved one had cancer, the first thing you're going to say is,
what kind of cancer?
Right, exactly. Thank you. What kind of cancer? What type of treatment should I be getting? What should I be planning for the future? What type of medication should I be on? What specialist should I be seeing? But unfortunately, many times when people hear this, it's so much harder for them to absorb, because many times with cancer, there's a miracle. And when they think that way, they think, well, with cancer, there's always a chance, there's always a miracle. But with Alzheimer's, with dementia, there is no miracle. And so that's why when we're looking at the different options that people have available to them, I always say to them, please, let's be as realistic as possible. Let's look at where your loved one really is. What stage of the disease are they in? I have to tell you, Marcia, and I know from your experience as well, I would have to say at least 50% of the families that come to me think that their loved one is in the early stages of the disease. And that's just not so. Because many times, like if I say to them, so tell me about an average day, and then I'm picking at what they're telling me, where they might say, well, mom gets up at 7 and then she gets dressed. Well, does she dress herself? Well, yeah, we pick out her clothes, and then, I have to help her with the buttons sometimes, because she has arthritis. Or, I have to help her with her shoes to tie them or to get her socks on because it's difficult for her. I ask them to repeat that back because she's not dressing herself. Their loved one is. In assisted living, a standard assisted living, they can get those services, but they also need to realize that when they're going into assisted living, they also need to look at what level of care their loved one is going in at. And what are the charges going to be for that? And do they have a nurse dispersing medications, or is it a med tech, which is a caregiver who's gone through some additional certification and can only give out certain medications? So there's so much that goes into it that this is where families truly need to educate themselves and to also be honest with themselves as to where their loved one truly is. And then to find out, okay, so I know I've looked at this, and now I need to figure out where my loved one needs to go. And I know that assisted living is not skilled nursing. The skilled nursing is much more of a clinical setting, and they do have a rehab service available. But if someone is bedbound, or if someone needs a Hoya lift, or if someone has a feeding tube, if someone cannot stand and pivot with assistance, they are not eligible for assisted living, even with the higher licensure. So this is where I think this is wonderful that you do this, Marcia, because educating families in regards to this is so wonderful. They see a commercial on TV and it's like, oh, that looks beautiful. Look at the lakes and the the golf course and everything else. But what is that lake and golf course going to truly do for your stage 5 dementia loved one? It means nothing. You want to make sure that they have areas to wander, that they have the freedom to wander about, that they have activity and socialization that's geared to them where they are at the moment. And I think that's very important. So when we look at it, there's independent living, there's assisted living, but there's standard assisted living and an assisted living that has a higher licensure. But I do want to say to everyone, please make sure that they, even though they have that licensure, that they do offer those services. And if they do, what are they going to charge for those services? And then memory care falls under the assisted living umbrella. And it's the same with memory care. You want to find out what type of licensure do they have, what type of staffing do they have, and what experience do they have with someone in the various stages of the disease, and to find the right fit. And then when you're looking at skilled nursing and the rehab, you want to be educated to it as well. There's 18 skilled nursing and rehabs in Lee County. And just to give you an example, this weekend, Marcia, 4 case managers from the various hospitals called me to get someone moved into skilled. So it's also educating our case managers as to what services we truly offer. They have someone with dementia, but they need to get some rehab before they could go to memory care. So truly, the education of these services is needed across the board for caregivers, for professionals, and also for the community in general, so that they can continue to understand what is available to them and what direction they should be going.
Well, I think that you explained it so well. There's a lot to understand, a lot to learn, but you were very clear and concise with all the differences and explaining the differences between all of those. And I think that this is a great topic for a lot of caregivers, to learn about, and not, like you said, just caregivers, but even people in the hospital, to really address to the families what the next step is, where that patient that maybe be getting discharged from the hospital, what's the best place for them to go, and why. And so I want to thank you for explaining that, and for understanding all of the differences that people do need to know. And I'm so glad we can talk about that on this show. Right now, we're going to take a commercial break and thank our national sponsor. We'll be giving away a free book. So if you're listening or watching this program, you might want to get a piece of paper and pencil handy so I can tell you how you can get your free book. We'll be right back.
Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias, and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Welcome back. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities, a part of the ProMedica family. And you, as a caregiver, by listening to this show, by watching the program, you are eligible to get a free book, because Arden Courts wants to help you, the caregiver, to learn more about caregiving so that you can be a better caregiver and not feel so stressed out or worry that you're doing the right thing. This is a great book. It's called The 36-Hour Day. It has been around a long, long time. Many, many caregivers refer to it as their caregiver Bible because it is so helpful. And this book is being offered to you just for the asking. All you have to do to get it is send an email, and that email address is delray@arden-courts.com. That's Delray, DELRAY, at Arden, ARDEN-courts, COURTS.com. Send an email giving your name, your address, and your telephone number, and tell them that you heard about this free offer on the Caregiver Solution Info show, and they'll be happy to mail a book directly to you. So don't delay. Get it today. You'll be really glad that you did. My guest today is Teele Cunningham. Teele is a certified dementia practitioner. She's a senior memory care advisor with the ProMedica family of Arden Court's memory care community, and she's joining me via telephone from Fort Myers, where there is an Arden Court's memory care community, along with 9 others across the state of Florida. Actually, there's probably closer to over 50 in the whole United States. And Arden Courts is a memory care assisted living, which is interesting because that's exactly the topic today. We're talking about what is an assisted living? What is memory care? Is memory care assisted living, or is memory care just nursing home? And what's the difference? And what's the difference between a regular assisted living and one that offers other care? So Teele has discussed this and explained it so beautifully. And I think that it's something that most caregivers feel overwhelmed with even trying to figure it out. But I want to tell you, as a caregiver, you don't always have to figure it out all by yourself. If you go to a healthcare professional, one that's in the assisted living business, like the memory care advisors at Arden Courts, they'll be happy to explain it to you. Sit down and go through all the details, no obligation, just to be there to learn. And that's one of the things that Arden Courts does, is they educate families about the disease and about your options. So Teele, I want to bring up a scenario because we're talking about different places where people can go to live to get help because they have memory loss, and that would be assisted living memory care, even nursing home memory care. I had a gentleman I spoke to actually just today. His mother lives in Florida. He resides in New Mexico. And around Labor Day, the mom who lived at, I will not mention the name, but a assisted living in another part of Florida, she took a fall and she broke her hip. And now she's in the rehab, like you explained, in a nursing home, but the rehab section of that nursing home for short-term stay while she's getting her physical therapy. He did not quite understand, or no one had actually explained to him about what happens after mom finishes her physical therapy. Is she going to be able to go right back to that assisted living? Now, I will say that the assisted living that she is currently residing in has a memory unit, and she is in that small memory unit, and the rest of the building is regular assisted living. He's far away. He doesn't have a chance to be regularly visiting her in Florida. And I was talking to him about what the scenarios were that could happen once mom gets the rehab that she's entitled to or that they can give her, and then what he will be told once they're done. So can you go through that scenario and help the families who maybe they've been in a memory assisted living, but now they've gone to a rehab, and what's the consequences of that? And is it automatically, hey, go to rehab, get your PT, and go back home to the dementia care? Or what could be some of the other scenarios that could possibly happen there?
Absolutely. So, Marcia, one of the things that the son, especially being in another state, needs to realize that discharge is dictated by the insurance company from rehab. So as long as mom is continuing to progress with the parameters that they've set at the rehab for her PT or OT or any other services that they're offering, the insurance will continue to a point. And what I mean by that is they might say, okay, she has up to 14 days or up to 20 days paid by Medicare or the supplemental insurances. Then after that point, they would say, okay, they'll pay for 80% of it for another 5-7 days, whatever, but you have to pay 20% out of pocket. So I always tell families, please be prepared. Do not wait for that call to come to say, oh, it's Wednesday and your mom's going to be discharged Friday at 10 a.m. you're out of state, and now you're wondering, is it the right thing for mom to go back to her memory care community? Are you feeling comfortable with that? You may want to know, okay, how did the fall? You might want more detail as to how the fall happened, etc. Because I want to make it clear, no one can stop a fall from happening. But within that, before someone returns to a memory care community, the community is supposed to go and do an assessment. And that assessment will determine, are they capable of taking this person back? So, for example, if mom went into the community and she was walking without a mobility device, or she was using a walker and doing well with it, then, and now she's back at that point, she may be qualified to go back to that community. But if that community is not able to have a one or two person available to assist her to transfer or to ambulate, then they're not going to take her back. If her core strength has changed, if there's other areas that have come up, other issues that have come up, depending upon the community and their capabilities, they may or may not be able to take his mother back. So it's important to be prepared for that. So with that, what I suggest to families is, even if your plan is for your loved one to go back to that original community, pending their approval through their assessment, it does not hurt to have another set of eyes put on them. Many times myself, our executive director, and our resident services coordinator, also known as the director of nursing, we have gone and done hundreds, if not thousands, of assessments to determine where this person is. It's also important to know that if someone had surgery, that they may see a change in their cognitive awareness. Anesthesia can cause an exacerbation of the dementia that they have. There could be more confusion. There could be some behaviors. So all of these things need to be looked at before a discharge is planned. And you want to make sure that there's a very smooth transition plan in place, whether it's for the loved one to go back to their community or whether it's to go to another community or whatever they decide to do as a family. If the community is saying, well, your loved one can come back, but we need you to hire 24/7 care for a period of time, I think the family needs to look at that and reevaluate, is that the right fit as well? Now, if mom is not progressing, if she's not doing well, if she is not getting out of bed, if she's refusing PT, and by the way, they cannot force anyone to do anything. No community can. No one can be forced to do something. It's a resident's right. It's a patient's right. But if they refuse and they're not making progress, there's going to be a discharge that's issued. And at that point, if the person has become bedbound, if they need a Hoya lift to get out of bed, if they need more than a two-person transfer to ambulate to be able to go from bed to chair, if they've seen an increase, a decline in their cognitive abilities or behaviors, what they might be hearing next is, your mother needs skilled care. And that could be for a short period of time, or it could be that's her new baseline. And that's what I think families, especially those that are out of town, and how frustrating it must be for this son to be in New Mexico, his mother's in Florida, and he's not there putting eyes on her. So I always say to families, you know what, if not for any other reason, if you send someone else to do a true, complete assessment of where things are, cognitively, physically, as well as, looking at the other clinical aspects of it and trying to put together what is going to be the best next transition for his mom.
That's exactly right, Chalet. And they might find that The mom can't go back to her previous community where it was an assisted living memory care because now she needs to stay where she is because it's considered a nursing home. She's not appropriate. And when a family hears that and they haven't been forewarned, it's sort of a shock to them. And then they are at a loss as, well, what do I do now? And where do I go? And how do I do it? And they just kind of fall apart because they're devastated that their parent or their spouse can't continue where they were because of a change mentally, physically, or medically. And so what should families do to be prepared for that decision?
Well, I think, Marcia, one of the first things that the families need to realize is that each person in the rehab, which is part of the skilled nursing, each person that's in rehab, there are case managers that are there. There are social workers. But I cannot stress this enough to everyone. Most of the skilled nursing rehabs have 2 case managers. Now imagine being one of few people overseeing 113, 120 patients. And they cannot, it's not feasible for them to be able to say, I found the perfect place for your mom. What most of them do is they email you a list that basically has every assisted living or memory care on it, or they start to talk about long-term care and what the cost is going to be. So to give you an idea of that, Marcia, the average cost for someone in skilled nursing on a private pay basis is about $15,000 a month.
Yeah, and that's called custodial care, right, Chalet?
That is correct. That is custodial care.
So even though even though they're in a skilled nursing facility, they're no longer getting that skilled care under Medicare. That's over. They've gotten everything that they can do for them. And so if they have to stay, it flips the switch from skilled care to custodial care. And custodial care is exactly what you talked about. It's out of pocket and it's very expensive unless someone were to be lucky enough to maybe have some long-term care insurance that covered skilled nursing facilities.
Absolutely. And then, that's when the case manager, if someone has to stay, they're going to have one of their specialists sit down and go over with them their finances, if they're eligible for VA aid and attendance, if they're eligible for the Medicaid waiver. And I think everyone has a misperception about those services as well. You have to qualify for them, and it doesn't happen overnight. So there's different forms of Medicaid, and long-term Medicaid, you have to have certain parameters, a certain amount of income, not more than a certain amount each month. Your assets are extremely low. So in order sometimes to get those services, you have to do the spend down. And when the families hear this, the first thing many of them think about is, my parents saved their entire lives for them to be taken care of, and now in a matter of months, everything that they have saved is going to be gone.
Yes.
Or the family home has to be sold. And, it's very difficult for families. So just an extra to add in there, please, everyone, please, please, please hire an elder law attorney and make sure all of your I's are dotted and T's are crossed and everything is in order, so that if this does happen to anyone, that they have a plan in place. And that's going to help so much. But then they also have to say, okay, so maybe they need custodial care. Now, what is that going to entail? Are they going to still be getting the same amount of PT that they were getting in rehab? The answer is no, because it's not the same service. It's a totally different service. So they really have to be on top of what's happening at the case management meetings, what is being said, what is the next step. And if you're out of state, you can request to have a discharge planning meeting with the director of physical therapy, occupational therapy, the director of nursing, the case manager, and even the administrator. And it's important that everybody feels that all of their information is, well, their questions are being heard and that they're getting information back for each of the questions. I think that's such a big concern to families, especially those that are out of state, is I'm not there, I can't see what's going on, I don't understand the terminology. Well, sometimes you might have to have an advocate go in for you to be there as well. And there's many private geriatric care managers that are available that can help with that. Or if you're, if your loved one is in a community, see if someone from the community will go there on behalf of you. You're still on the phone with them, but you're able also to give some input to this care plan. Many times, and I've seen this over the years, Marcia, and I know you have too, where someone was at a different community and because of their staffing issues or because of their licensure or because of how many nurses they have on and how many hours a day they have nurses, if someone needs more care, they're a higher level of care, the acuity is higher, they cannot take them back. But they're not offering to try and help the family to go to the next step. And many times that's when we're getting the phone call, please make a miracle happen. And, going in and working with them and putting that transition plan in place is so important.
Well said. That really lays it on the line. The gentleman that I spoke to today about his mom, he said to me, I wish I'd talked to you sooner, because he had no clue about all of the consequences and the different variables that could happen with his mom being in this rehab. And she hasn't reached her 20 days yet. And he's wondering, what's going to happen. So I gave him a heads up and I said, sometimes they don't give you more than a couple days notice that, okay, we're not certifying her anymore under Medicare because we can't progress her anymore. So we're done and we'll have to discharge her in like 2 days, 3 days maybe. So families that get shocked when they hear that, they think they didn't give me much notice, but that is sort of typical in the industry, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And it's not just Florida, it's every state. I had a family, they're in New Jersey, and the daughter said, this would never happen in New Jersey. I said, it absolutely does happen in New Jersey. I said, it's the same across the board when it comes to that, because it's being controlled, in the beginning by what the insurance is telling you. And then, if the family is saying, well, can't you push mom or dad or my husband or my wife to do more, you can only push someone to do what they're capable of doing. And like I said, you can't force someone. So truly, from the moment that they're in the hospital and that next step, if they have surgery or they say they could benefit from rehab, I tell everyone, please take advantage of that, because benefiting from rehab is the first, clue that this person needs more. They need more attention. They need to build their strength. There's a weakness. And we have to remember, with every transition, there's a little bit of a decline, even for those that don't have Alzheimer's or dementia. When you go from home to the hospital, then to rehab, and then it's like, okay, what's the next step? They're not going to be the same person they were coming from home.
Exactly.
There is a decline.
Yes.
But
and
being prepared for it and being realistic. I think that's where, the blurred lines tend to come in, where we have to be realistic about where the person really is, what's their new baseline, and what plan can be put together for them.
And you said the magic word, is because be realistic. I think that's one of the things that is harder for a lot of caregivers, being realistic, because just because your person is now in a rehab to get physical therapy to get stronger and better, it doesn't mean it's always going to work, especially with people that have dementia, because yes, they're doing what they need to do at the time, but they're not going to remember to do what they need to do once they leave because of their short-term memory loss. And so a lot of families are disappointed that it didn't work for them, again, expecting a miracle. But again, being realistic, there is memory loss there, and you have to remember what you've learned in physical therapy to continue to do it and to get better. So that is another little glitch in there, too, that I think caregivers need to know.
Absolutely. And if someone is going home, Marcia, the first thing that they should do is ask for an order to continue physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, psych nursing, whatever services, to continue them at home if they're going home. And if they're going to a memory care community, by all means, that memory care community should be on top of things, already thinking about, we've got to get orders for PT, OT, to try and continue to build their strength.
Right. Well, Teele, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. You are a wealth of information. You are a wonderful person. You have the expertise, the knowledge, and the experience. And thank you again for helping so many people and sharing all of that with us on the show today.
Thank you so much, Marcia. It's my passion, and I know it's your passion too, and if anything, we just want to be able, and your show is a testament to truly wanting to help all caregivers everywhere. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Teele. If you're listening to this program and you want more information, you can contact an Arden Court memory care community near you. You can go to the website arden-courts.com and go to the website and look and see which community would be closer to you. Again, there's over 50 of them in the United States. If that is something that you want to reach out, that's great. There are a lot of ways to get information. If you live in a state where we may not have a community like an Arden Courts, check with your local Alzheimer's Association or some social worker that works in, like Teele said, the rehab where you're at, to get the information that you need. Because once you have the information, everything's going to be a little bit smoother because at least you know what to expect. And, that's the key right there. Be prepared. So I want to thank you all for watching the show or listening to it on iHeartRadio today. We'll be back next week, every Tuesday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time with another program of Caregiver Solutions Info. Until then, I hope you all stay well and stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.
The content, information, and opinions expressed during the related show are those of the show